independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Australia, and welcome to my weekly online class to go. So for those who are new to my class, this is my weekly live that I do. It streams to both Facebook and YouTube. And if you place an order in my online store of $75 or more, and that's before shipping and after any Stampin' Rewards redemption, by the end of Saturday night, I will send you the kits to make 2 each of the 3 cards from this week's live class. So you'll get all the cardstock designer series paper and ribbon that you need. And any embossed pieces, any die cuts or punches that are not part of the featured bundle. So you do need the featured bundle or something similar. I'll send you the cardstock that you can stamp and die cut, but I won't send die cuts from the featured bundle. So this week the featured bundle is it's the Lights of Aurora suite, and the stamp and die bundle is on the last chance list. It was just updated a few days ago, so that is now on the last chance list. The paper is not, but it is still available. So I'll switch my camera around and I'll show you the projects first. So these are the 3 projects, and the bundle, if you haven't seen it, so we've got the stamp set. So the stamp set is all sentiments. So if you don't have this one, you can use any sentiment that you want to use for your cards. And then the die set, so you've got lots of sort of scenery background dies. So you've got the larger trees, the smaller ones, clouds, mountain backdrop, and these ones which you can use for landscape and water. So you get all those dies, and then the paper which coordinates with it. So on the back you've got the more solid colours, and there's a blue one in there, and I may be missing one, but so you've got those on the back, and then on the front's a really good stuff. You've got all of these images. So this one hasn't gone on to last chance list, so this one will be around for a bit longer. So that is paper. One of the projects, this final one, does have a little bit of heat embossing for the sentiment. If you don't have embossing tools, or you just don't want to emboss, you could either use the Craft White ink pad on the cardstock, or choose a lighter cardstock and stamp in a darker colour. Either of those work. So we will start with this one, and before I forget, starting tomorrow for I think it's 3 days, so it'll be Wednesday to Friday, there is free shipping as well. So little extra bonus for you if you are ordering this week. Always love free shipping. And I'm just going to double check that everything is working as it should. Yep, looks good. Alrighty. So we will start with a basic black card base, and then I have some embossed Pool Party, embossed with the Soft Waves embossing folder, some of the designer series paper, some black cardstock, Pool Party for the sentiment, and one of the die cut, the smaller tree image. Now, if you cut the full length of this die, so it's this smaller one, well, smaller in terms of the size of the trees. If you cut the full length of that, you will have enough for 2 cards. So you can just cut it in half and use one half for one card and one for the other. Now let's do the stamping first, I think. So we just need the sentiment for this one, and I'm just going to use Memento Black. And I didn't get that one out. I got all my other sentiments out, but not the one I needed first. And which block? Is that going to be long enough? It will if I go on an angle. My longer block that I would normally use for this is taken up with another sentiment. All right. So we'll just stamp that in the middle. And we can put that to the side for the moment. Actually, I'm gonna restamp that. That did not come out as clean as it should. Let's try again. Good thing cardstock has 2 sides. That's better. Much better. Alrighty. Let's move that to the side and bring these back in. So we will start with the embossed piece and we'll stick that down. Maybe the one that's already open. So I'm going to use the green glue because it tends to be better for the embossed pieces, just because the glue gets into all those little grooves and helps it to stick a bit better. So that is my preference for embossed cardstock, but you may have a different preferred adhesive, which is absolutely fine. Alright, stick that down, that's looking good. And then, now this one, I'm going to stick this one down first, just to make sure that I line it up properly and don't need to trim it. Now, with these pieces, because you've got lots of very fine pieces, you could use the adhesive sheets, but the other option is if you get a silicone mat and a sponge dauber, and mine's looking, I might need to replace this one. If you do this, make sure you keep the dauber just for adhesive. Don't go using it for ink or anything else. Keep it just for adhesives, and just pick up some of the adhesive and we can just dab it on. Be careful with these little fine bits. You don't want to you do want to just dab, not sort of spread it around. Like in the bottom section you can swipe it because it's a solid section, but for the detailed part, if you do that, you may end up tearing it, which we don't want. So just dab, and make sure you've got your cardstock on a silicone sheet, because if you did this on your grid paper, you will likely find that your piece will stick to said grid paper, which is not what you want. So with the silicone sheet, it will just pick right off. And then I'm actually going to grab a second one, which I forgot to clean that one off. It's dried, so it doesn't matter, but and then I'm going to line this one up and make sure it comes all the way. And if you find that you happen to get lots of ink on that sort of come through and is on the front, if you use your embossing buddy and run it over, then it'll take all the sticky away from the adhesive. And I may well need to do that later with one of the other cards, so I can show you that then, but your embossing buddy is very useful when it comes to removing adhesive. Alright, let's move that out of the way for now. It will come back in later. Hi Renee, how are you? Alright, we will stick this down to black. And apologies if you can hear my dog snoring in the background. She is in here with me tonight. And she's a bit of a loud snorer. Alrighty, so get that down and just so it's just a fine border around the edges on this one, and then all we need to do is stick this one down in the middle, and it's almost time for a new bottle of glue. Good thing I have a few, just a few. Alrighty, let's get that one down. Then all we need to do is find my dimensionals. Yep, that's the side I'm not using. Add your dimensionals, peel off all the backings, and this one's going up the top, and I'm running this one all the way over to the edge of the embossed pool party, and just straighten that up a bit. And then for embellishments, I'm using the frosted iridescent dots. These are also now on the last chance list, as is the ribbon that goes with this suite, which I'll be using in a bit. So just add a few of these. And we should probably add the insert. Definitely need an insert on this one, given it's a black card base, unless you're writing in white. And get that one down. And there we go, that is the first one. That one is fairly quick and easy. Next one, so bring this one back in. So this is the second one. So this one has a little bit more layering, but it's not not too bad. Alrighty, let me find my kit. So for this one, I've used a army blue card base, and then so there are 2 pieces of designer series paper, and we have the insert, which we'll do later, and the trees. Now with these ones, I prefer, and it generally works better if, so this is the full length of the tree piece from the first card, and so obviously all of these pieces are wider than what you need, but it is generally a bit easier to cut them wider, lay them down, and then trim off the ends. Just be mindful with this one, because there are going to be a couple of layers. You probably don't want to try and trim this one through your paper trimmer. If you've got a guillotine, you can use that, or scissors. It's a bit too thick, particularly when you add the trees in as well, and then you've got sections where you've got potentially 3 layers. It's going to be a bit tricky. I wouldn't recommend it. So, and yeah, so we'll do that in a sec. We will do the stamping first. So we want the stamping to be right down the bottom, and I'm using Magenta Black again. So I'm going to start with the second part of the sentiment so that I can get that right at the bottom, and then move up. And excuse my head if it ends up in the camera view. And then this one above. Alrighty. So to layer this one, essentially what we want to end up with is, and I didn't trim this one down, that was silly. I'll need to trim that down too. That's fine. So that one will be right at the bottom, and then we will have the mountains and the trees, and we just need to adjust. So we probably want the white for the mountain to sit at the border with the blue. Because it is, no, sorry, when I was putting this together the other day, that's right, we want the, normally with these you'd layer that one, and then that one, and then that one, but with this one, because we want to make sure that we keep enough of the blue, actually what I ended up doing, I was doing a second one on the weekend, is I've stuck those 2 together, and obviously you could trim off some of the bottom of this one if you wanted to, but I wanted that down there, and I want the white that sits behind, and then the blue lines up with the purple. So it was easier to stick these 2 together and then layer that way, and then the trees over the top, but I will trim this one down first because I forgot to do that. And I'll just double check, double check my measurement just in case. So we'll trim off that little bit. Hi Dimity, nice to see you. Don't worry about being late, it's all good. We are just on the second card. And I'm going to move those out of the way, and I'm going to bring my silicone mat, well, I'm going to bring both of them back in actually, but so, and I do need to clean the adhesive off the other side of that, but we will adhere these two together first. And and it doesn't matter too much, but it can be a bit easier when you go to cut if you don't have adhesive out the edges, even though I always forget. But not a big deal, it just makes it a little tougher to cut, but it's still doable. Alrighty, that's probably, I think that's, and ultimately it depends on what's going to end up staying on the card and what's going to be cut off. And it's definitely time to open up a new glue. That's alright, do that in a sec. Alright, so we will stick that one down, and I will open up a new glue, just so we're not here all night while I try and shake it out. Alright, so we want this one right at the bottom, and then we want that one coming in underneath so that the purple lines up with the blue. And then because you've got the longer piece, you can adjust depending on how you want it. And this is particularly good if you're doing one with multiple mountain layers. And so you may have, say, the first one like this, but then the second one, you don't want it obviously directly in line, so you may want it further across. So if you've got a longer piece, you can play around with it a bit more. So I'm going to partially stick this one down because I want to be able to slip the other piece in underneath. So I'll add adhesive all the way. I'm just not going to press down at the top. At least that's the plan. Wouldn't be the first time I've said to not do something and then straight away gone and done it. So I'll just slide that across to line it up. Press down just at the bottom for now. That's coming in underneath. Haven't decided where it's probably going to sit about there. Just want to avoid too much adhesive outside where it's going to stick, just to make it a bit easier to trim. All right. So I'll slide that down, move it across because I want to cross a bit further, and once it's roughly where I want it, press that bit down and that one, oops, make sure it stays down. There we go. And then we will add this one. So this one, we're going to basically bring it down. Need to factor in some room for the ribbon, but we also want to make sure there is some space so you can sort of have the water, and the ribbon obviously can go across the top so it sits about there. So as long as we've got, you know, a little bit of, well, reasonable amount of the blue showing, that's fine. And I'm going to do what I did before with the dauber and the adhesive. I'm just going to remove some of the adhesive from before, just so it's not sticking. And same thing again, and remembering I probably don't need, well, I definitely don't need all the way across, and I'm going to end up with more than I need. But just makes it a bit easier to add the adhesive, and also means you don't get as much on the front. You may get some, and that's when you use your embossing buddy to remove that excess, and it's also a lot easier to get adhesive on those fine points. So that should do it, I think. And we'll move that one out of the way, bring this one back in. Bring that down, and I can see I've got a little bit of adhesive there. I will fix that up when I get my embossing buddy out for the next section. And I just want to check. I'm just going to adjust slightly because I can see a small gap. The end one I'm not worried about. It's just a tiny little gap there, and it annoys me, but that end bit will be cut off, so that will be fine. All right, so now we need to trim. So this is why I said you don't want to use your Stampin' Trim for this, because you've got a few layers, and it's not going to go through your trimmer. I even struggled. I tried to use the mini guillotine that Stampin' Up! Had a while back, and even that couldn't do it. So just going to line up, if you line up your scissors with the edge of your cardstock, make sure you're not cutting, or try not to cut this piece, and we'll just trim that down. And tidy it up. Go, and other side. There we go. And if you've got any adhesive ends up on your scissors, just wipe that off. So that is now cut down. We will add the ribbon. Now we need, I'm going to tie a knot, and you also need to be careful with this one because it is sheer. Trying to adhere it isn't super easy. You can add a little bit of adhesive using the dauber, and also stick a glue dot underneath, which is part of what I'm going to do. I just want to first of all make sure I don't want to be covering the sentiment. So first of all, get it roughly where I want it, and I'm going to flip it over, adhere it at the back, because you can use as much as you'd like on the back, because that's not going to be seen. So that will help keep it secure, and then I'll get glue dots out. So flip this back over, and we will add a glue dot underneath where we want this to sit. Just shuffle it up slightly. So I want that about there, so that's about it. And before I stick that down, I'm going to grab, I've got a little bit of, I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive there, and once it dries, just make sure it's not too thick. You want to really sort of spread it out so you can barely see it, and once it dries, it'll be fine, and it's only a small amount. It just helps to stick it down a bit better. And we shall trim that off. If I can actually get my scissors to do it without having to hold both ends. Add the knot, and then I should probably wipe the adhesive off these scissors, which I clearly haven't done, which is why they're sticking to everything. Alrighty, so that bit is done. Now we can, and I need to give my mat a good clean, which I might have to do in just a sec because it's got a little bit too much adhesive on it. So, seeing as we have adhesive here, we may as well make the most of it. Take the backings off. Just be mindful with these that the bottom half, or the bottom section, is going to be a lot thicker and heavier than the top part, because you've got quite a few layers. And we will stick that down. And then all that is left is some more of the frosted iridescent dots. And did I go small or large? I went small. Oh, and the insert. Need the insert. Oops. Try not to bend it. Okay. Alrighty. And there is the second one done. Now I'm just going to give this a bit of a clean. So if you have the glass mat or anything similar and you've got adhesive all over it like I do, isopropyl alcohol. And I just use a microfiber cloth and it gets it off quite easily. It's very, very handy. I found these little tiny ones at the local pharmacy, and then so I grabbed one so I can keep it on my desk, so I don't have to have the big bottle here and then I just fill it up when I run out. So it's very, very handy for getting adhesive off. So it's also good for cleaning your blocks as well. And if you don't have any of this, or you're traveling, if you've got alcohol wipes, they also work as well, because it's the same thing. So if you've got any of those lying around, they are very handy. Alrighty, that looks better. Thank you, Dimity. I'm glad you like it. I have had a lot of fun playing with this suite. It is a lot of fun. So I'm using this suite for my club this month as well. So I've got a few more projects made with this one. It's a lot of fun. Now, the final one, when I find my sample again, where is it hiding? Where's it gone? Staring me in the face, no doubt. There it is, down the bottom. So this one, I've used the larger trees, and again, if you cut the full size ones, you should have enough to do 2 cards from the one. Or if there's a particular section of the die that you want, you can always just die cut twice with the section that you want. Either option works. Now this one has a tiny little bit of heat embossing, so let's do that first. Just get all the pieces out. So we have the designer series paper, some basic grey cardstock, basic black for the die cut, which I can see has slightly bent, but we'll fix that. That'll be fine. And it's a bit bent in the corner. Do I need? But that's all right, because we can actually, we will trim some of that off, so that will be fine. And basic white, and that's right, I had, when I was doing my extra ones on the weekend, I had a bit left over, and it's the perfect size for this one. So let's do the heat embossing. So just a very small strip of basic black, and we need Versamark, embossing buddy, definitely need that. The white from the basics embossing powder set. So I'm just going to grab a scrap. So first thing we want to do, and I'm going to grab my tweezers for this one because it is a very small piece of cardstock, and I'm just hoping, I've got the fan on in the background because it's quite warm, so I'm hoping that I don't end up with embossing powder everywhere, because it does tend to catch it sometimes and it can send it flying, but hopefully we'll be okay. So embossing buddy over the cardstock. Just be careful that you don't end up doing your embossing buddy and then picking up the cardstock and getting the oils and everything from your hand on your card. So as I mentioned earlier, now, which is, if you have, and I'll probably need it on this final one as well, but if you've got little sections where when you're sticking it down, you've got the adhesive came through and it's a bit sticky, if you run your embossing buddy over it, and you will need to basically get the I'm going to get my brush just to get some of the extra, because it is obviously, it's white and it's going on to like cardstock, so you do want to be careful, but it will brush off and then the sticky is gone. Sorry, I just realized I was out of camera shot. So the sticky is now gone. So embossing buddy is also very good for that. So if you ever put adhesive where you don't want it, get your embossing buddy out. Alrighty, so I'm just using the thank you sentiment on this one, and I'm going to ink this up well because my Versamark is a bit old. I did re-ink it recently, but it's still a little on the old side. And get that down. I'm going to use my tweezers, even though the end I'm going to be trimming off actually, so it's fine. I just want to check if it's, yeah, it's not perfectly straight, but it is straight enough for now. Let's get that in there. Get the embossing powder over it. I always go with more rather than less because you tip it back into your jar, so it's fine. And then we'll just tap off. If you've got any stray bits, are fine, and this one isn't quite fine enough, but particularly if you've got a fine and quite stiff brush, it's quite useful for getting those little bits off, because you just want to be careful that you don't end up brushing off the bits that you want to keep. But that's good enough. Now, before I do the actual heating, I'm going to tip this back in because I can see it ending very badly when I get the heat tool out, forgetting that this is on the desk and it just going everywhere, and then add the fan in and it'll just be a disaster zone. So let's move all of these out of the way, and I usually, when I heat emboss, have the piece on just a wooden board with some foil. Make sure that the clip is not plastic, because you're going to be heating, so you don't want plastic. So I use the foil because when you heat, it heats the foil as well, and that helps to heat from underneath, which helps it heat and melt more evenly, but also helps reduce the warping. It'll start to warp a little bit at the start, but then as it heats up, you should find that it reduces the warping. So let's get this going. Check how that's looking. I think that's pretty good. So basically, if you haven't heat embossed before, you're just looking for it to go shiny, and that looks pretty good. And then particularly if you've been heating a larger piece, so you've had the heat tool going for a while, just be careful when you unclip, because particularly if you're been heating close to the clip, you may find it's a little bit hot, and you don't want to burn yourself. Oh, thank you, Dimity. A lot of the tips are things I either find through accident or stupid mistakes that I make. Alright, so for this one, I'm just going to trim it on an angle, and that is it for that piece. I'll put that to the side for the moment. So for this one, the border is just on the sides of the cardstock, so it's DSP is full length. So we will stick that down. I'm going to bring my mats back in. And my dog thinks it's time to get up. I suspect my partner may be home, and she may have realized, so she wants to go and find him, because he has been out all day, and she's not happy about that. She is never happy about that. She'll just have to wait a little bit longer. Alright, so let's get that even, and then now which way did I go with this one? Let me pull out my previous one, because there are a few different sections of the paper that I used, and that was a very stupid mistake, because I forgot that I need to trim this one down. So I'm going to just have to do that beforehand and hope for the best. Thankfully I do have all of my measurements here, because I write them down as I go. So we are going for about 7 centimeters, and I want to cut that bit off, but then that should be fine, because that sort of it got bent on one side and the corner is bent on the other. I'll go with this one, and we'll see how we go. Hopefully I haven't cut too far, but it should be okay. Alrighty, that should be fine. So, same thing as before, we'll use the silicone mat and a door bar. Once I find my door bar, there it is, sticking to some blocks. Yes, Dimity, we definitely all make mistakes. I have had times where I have been working on something and needed to score, and fairly convinced that I would end up cutting instead of scoring, and keep saying to myself, remember to score, not cut, remember to score, not cut, don't cut, don't cut, score, score, score. What do? Cut. As I'm telling myself not to cut, I cut. And it's not a one-off either. I think the one I do the most is sticking things down when I needed to put ribbon around it first. Done that one a lot. But sometimes mistakes mean we actually find, we find better ways of doing things, or find ways of avoiding the issue in the future. So it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you find really useful workarounds when you make a mistake. Alrighty, that should be enough. Should be enough as I keep adding more. Alrighty. Let's pick that one up, move that out of the way. And just carefully line that up, and I actually do need to trim the designer series paper a little as well, but that is fine, we can do that. So stick this one down, make sure it's all lined up, and I'm just gonna get some of those little extra bits of adhesive. That's better. There we go. Alright, now just trim this bottom bit off. There we go, that'll do. Still a tiny bit there, but that's actually because I didn't press it down far enough. And my camera's disappeared. Give me a sec. It hasn't happened for a while, so I'm not sure why it suddenly has, but let me bring it back. I'll try to... Is that going to work? Yeah, there we go. Don't know why it does that. It did that every couple of weeks for a while, and then it stopped. It seemed to be fine, and now it started to happen again. I don't know. Anyway, alright, let's bring the card base back in. So move those out of the way. This one is just going to sit in the middle there, and seeing as I've got a little bit of adhesive sitting on the door. I may as well get that off, and I'll need to pull off some of those bits of black cardstock that is now sitting on there. Okay, so we want, problem is I can't see where the score line is, but that's looking pretty good, I think. So stick that down, and then we need the sentiment and that piece of ribbon. Where is it hiding? It's going to hide from me, and I'll need to cut another piece instead of the one that I just had sitting there ready to go. Where's it hiding? It's probably staring me in the face. There it is. Nope, that's the old one. Well, the other one that is, that one's a little too short. Come on, where are you? It's either staring me in the face. Oh, there it is, falling on the floor. So we just want to fold it, essentially fold it over and have it sitting behind. We'll trim off a little bit once we stick it down. So I will add a glue dot first. Once I find them. So I'm going to stick the glue dot behind the cardstock and just fold it over. So I might just bring it up ever so slightly. There we go. And then we will add dimensionals. Where are my little ones? And we'll make sure there's dimensionals on the edge of that as well, just to give it a little bit extra sticky to hold it in place. Actually, before I stick that down, I will just give it a slight trim. That'll be enough. And we'll stick that down, and I just want to, if I can, pull that out. And I'm actually going to add, I don't know if this is going to work properly, but I will give it a go. And once it decides to come off the thing, add a glue dot in, just in underneath. So it's going to sit under the sentiment, so you shouldn't see it, but just so that I can separate that out slightly, and it will sit slightly separated like that. So then all we need is the sentiments again. So, not the sentiments, the embellishments. Done the center. Don't need to add a second one. Alrighty. these. And one more over there. We should add the insert because that still needs to go down. Alrighty. Whack that one down. Flip it over, and there is the final one. So I will bring everything back in. And where's my first one? There it is. Alrighty, so these are the 3 cards from this week's class. Remember, you have until the end of Saturday night to get your orders in, and there is free shipping from tomorrow until Friday. So obviously, that is the ideal time to get your orders in. And next week, the bundle is the Fluffy Squirrel bundle. So that one is also on the last chance list. So yeah, if you are after that one, go and check it out. I'm not sure if it's discounted or not, but it is last chance list. Alrighty, thank you so much for watching. If you are watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. And if you are not on my email list, head over to handmadeafterdark.com.au and sign up to my newsletter. You'll get all the information on various classes, PDF tutorials, and anything else that's coming up. So, free shipping and all that sort of stuff. Alrighty, thanks again for watching. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.